Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Jen, and today I want to make a video about the similarities between the empath and the narcissist and also the differences. So for me, the similarities are often when I believe me, I consider myself an empath, although I have had some narcissistic traits because I've been raised by highly narcissistic individuals and I've spent a lot of time around them. So it makes sense that when you're in that environment growing up, you're going to pick up some of their tools and tips on how they experience life. And so as an empath, there are a number of things because instead of encouraged, I was suppressed in life, and instead of gentle, kind, nurturing care, I was just around a lot of like aggressive, unhinged, unbalanced like parenting styles and personality types. And so I know, and the way I can talk about this is because I do have both sides of the coin, because like I said, I've had some narcissistic traits that I'm working on. Everybody does. Everybody really does. It just depends on how much you invest in them and if you're aware of them so you can work through them. And so the people I've been around in life up to this point have been highly narcissistic in the way that they just don't consider themselves in a position that needs growth. Like they feel like they've gotten to the best point that they can reach. But to me, that's really like settling, right? And so just as the empath will settle in life because they're so much in their head, and they're making so many excuses for the narcissistic person in their life. You know, they're uncertain, they lack certainty, they're self-doubting, they're insecure, and so is the narcissist. The narcissistic individual, they're overly confident, but they lack experience. So that's where they come up with that kind of bravado. You know, they have kind of a walk to them as well. And they speak like they know what they're talking about, and that's why they're so convincing at times, because you're just like, wow, you really sound confident in yourself. Like I have to believe you. You know, it'd be hard not to, until when the empath starts developing themselves and putting themselves in uncomfortable situations and you know, developing their own confidence. You start to see like, wow, this person is really not what they're talking about. Like once you get your own life experience, you can place it against someone else's opinions and advice and be like, that does not match up. Like that's not, I don't believe, like that's not my experience. Like what you're saying, you know, it's interesting how you see some people get to the top, and when you start working on getting, you know, and elevating yourself, you're going to be like, that's really odd that you don't value this in this sort of situation, and that you don't move towards this as this type of individual. Because when I'm working my way, I value these things because I've had to put the work in, and so I don't want to dismantle anything that I put so much work into. And so it's really interesting. You see a number of people who are successful, and looking at them, you can, I mean, personally, for the most part, I've, in my experience up to this point, I've been able to look at people and be like, you didn't get there through hard work. You got there because you have family members that put you there. You got there because you're a charmer, because you kiss other people's butts, because you ride with everyone instead of like setting boundaries and just, you know, being selective with who is around you. Like these people don't know how to say no, and when they do say no, it's very passive. It's not like to someone's face, because that would make them a mean person, right? So they don't speak truth, they lie, they're people pleasers. And how they get their way is through manipulating people's emotions, manipulating people, you know, trying to make them feel bad, try to make them feel small, try to put them in their negative emotions. And that's this side of the empath with that is like, because of our negative emotions, we tend to put other people first instead of ourselves. So like that's the opposite side. It's like empath or narcs really focus on themselves, and they can't think about anyone else's feelings. They put their feelings first above all else. And then for empaths, they put everyone before themselves, right? And so they're the last on the list. And so that's why they're doing something for everybody. And the narcissist is doing nothing for anybody. Like they require everyone to do stuff for them. Like this is carry the emotional load, the mental work, the physical work. Like it's really, it gets shocking when you become aware of what this looks like, because you start seeing it in everyday life, and like, you realize people that you don't even know very well still require you to like pick up their yard work, or you know, don't think about how their noise in their backyard, consistent noise, is like affecting other people, and they don't stop to think like, if I were to do that and everyone was to do that, then like the world would be a bit of a mess, right? So we're meant to be consistent, or sorry, conscious of like, you know, this is where this between you know, there's like an over control I found in the religious community for me personally that I experienced, and then in the spiritual community it goes to the other side of the spectrum where it's like, you know, just be free will and free this. And like I love free will, don't get me wrong, but we also have to remember, like, if you don't feel like picking up your garbage, somebody's gonna have to pick up your garbage, you know? And there's individuals who think they can just run around naked in the world and like, oh, it's not my responsibility, and like they'll just have to deal with it. But like in reality, that's not considering other people's, like maybe we don't want to see it. Like keep it in your home. What's wrong with that? Can we not just, like, where is the line here? It feels like in the world there's like so many like understandably there's so many different opinions and perspectives, but the idea is like if we all just did whatever we wanted whenever we wanted, this world, like who's going to clean up the mess? And it's the ones that think like that, like require other people to pick up the mess. And you know, and I find that people who are like that, like are overly free and don't think about that, but are also overly controlling, they still require other people to manage their emotional, like, you know, when somebody is cruel and cold to somebody, they expect that person just to deal with it, right? Don't be so sensitive. But then you have the other side of the coin where the people are like, well, I'm just going to do whatever I want whenever I want because I'm allowed. And it's like, okay, well, that in some areas that's wonderful, but in some areas it's inconsiderate of others, and it requires other people to pick up after you as a messy human being who's doing whatever they want whenever they want. It sounds like it sounds a bit like a toddler, like walking around naked and like smearing pudding all over their face and all over the cupboards, and then getting into like the talc powder. And like if we just let a toddler do whatever they want whenever they want, they're going to hurt themselves, right? And then, but if you're overly demanding of that same toddler, if you're on the other side and you're overly controlling of them, like that's damaging as well, right? Like we have to let them like grow and become curious and encourage that, but like to a certain degree. So like it feels like we've lost the line of like common sense and courtesy within our society. And it's like there's so many different belief systems out there that it's like, let's just set religion aside and spirituality aside, like just treat people how you want to be treated. And I don't even know if that's gonna I don't know if that's gonna help at this point either. And so with the nerds, I find like a lot of people will like think being an empath is a flex, but for me, when I'm in my empath era, I was overly emotional and I lacked logic, right? And then for the nerds, I wouldn't even say they have logic, because that's not what they're coming from either. It's like control. It's like defined lines, like putting everything in a box, like needing to define everything. And I feel like they make a lot of sentences where it's like a period mark, but there's no sort of like, there's more to the situation, there's more to the sentence. Like they're very opinionated, and those opinions keep them stuck. So they want to keep other people stuck because they can't handle the fact that somebody else might be able to excel differently, you know, because they can't handle different. They've just got to get stuck in that bubble. And so I find both sides to be and I can go both sides. I can go both places. I found myself in both positions where I'm still going back and forth, refining myself to try to meet myself in the middle, to where, you know, when you come across somebody who is like, is cruel and bullying, like I don't have to fall into my emotions anymore, because it's not the end of the world. Like everybody's not like that. But before, I used to feel like, because I've experienced so many people like that, I would be like, when is this ever going to end? And it's like I had to look back at me and where I was in life, and I'm like, I'm still not where I need to be. Like I'm either slowing down to become target for these bullies because they're stuck, or I'm not able to acknowledge like where I'm needing to grow more in order to like, and also like see myself clearly. You know, it's like, and then I'd have to see the narcissist clearly, and that these are bullies and they are cowards. And so they want to make you believe that they've got some sort of control over you, but they don't have any control over themselves. And so the more I learn to manage my emotions and get clear about why I was feeling something in that minute or moment, it really helps me to get clear with the situation and realize that not everybody is like that. A lot of people may be like that, yes. And so instead of trying to work my way through this each individual encounter that I have with these narcissists, I just learn to expect like it will be weird if I didn't experience a narcissist, because when you go into that place, it's more logical, and then you're like expecting it to happen, so you're prepared for it. And the other side, where you're just like hopeless and feeling beaten down and victimized by these individuals, it really puts you in a place where you feel one against some. And so when you take your power back and empower yourself and say, no, like they're seeing me as prey, and that's a predator, so how do I empower myself? How do I put myself up there instead of out there, you know? And I also had to learn that, like, anytime I came across one of these individuals, I made myself small. And I had so many of these channels that I started, and I just felt because they had access to them, I didn't want to be seen by them. I didn't want to be vulnerable in front of them. I didn't want them to see my failures and things like that. And so I had to get more comfortable with that. And that's taken on a number of different levels of what that looks like for me. Because like I said, I've experienced this with family, but I could create distance with family, right? Like I just don't have to answer my door or their phone calls. And then, same with partners. And even the friendships that I had to disconnect because I recognized that they're highly narcissistic. That was a little bit more challenging because you shared a softer version of yourself with those individuals, and you want to have friends, right? And so that was challenging. But then also, and with partners, I found that challenging too, because you just didn't want to come across as unattractive or like unlikable. And so I had to stop caring what other people thought of me in order to step up and advocate for myself. And then even in when I started experiencing highly narcissistic individuals in workplaces, because in the workplace, it's not going to be one, it's going to be some, because what happens is it usually stems from the top. So if you have a boss that really doesn't give a shit about their people, and they focus more on productivity, you're probably going to have a narcissistic energy in that building, because like I said, they're thinking about their dollar and not the people that have to create the product. Right? And so they don't really give a shit. They may pretend, that's kind of like the love bombing with a narcissist. They may give you a pizza day. They're gonna do things every once in a while to gift you, just to make them seem like the savior in a situation when they're the ones causing the harm. Like I remember I worked at this one place, and they would require us to work 3 Saturdays out of 4. And and then one Christmas, I guess that was the Christmas I was there, but before that, they never had extra holidays off at Christmas. So of course they want to be walking around hugging everybody and celebrating Christmas, but like the next Christmas after that, it was limited days. And I don't have access to documents and private information, but to me, as a person looking back and just seeing how dysfunctional that workplace was, if they would have made things more efficient, they could have got things done faster, and protect the worker, and then also like allow us to have time off to rest and recover, right? But because they didn't know what to look for, and they don't know what a quality worker looks like, they get rid of those people and they label them as trouble when they start to like recognize things. And these people are also charging their customers more, and so like when they don't know what to look for, then they fall for the people kissing their ass, because it's their ego that's leading, right? It's not their authenticity. It's not that they've done the work and they recognize like, oh, this is what it takes to create a product. They don't know. They're just all about schmoozing and being in front and center. And so I've noticed a lot of people in those workplaces, they put a lot of people that are narcissistic in the team lead positions, in the supervisor positions, and then they're just like bullies and they wreak havoc on everybody. And a lot of people are in a position where they're not ready to walk away from that financial foundation. And so they're forced to like really endure it. And it's kind of like what I refer to as like one healthy strawberry in a batch of moldy ones. They become part of that herd that is like just stuck and stagnant and miserable, and resentful. So any new person going in there that has any sort of self-worth is really driven out of that environment, because it's just it's like the ick factor is huge. It feels like a narcissistic playground. And so in those environments, I learned where I was overly empathic to these people, and I thought I should stay in those environments because I thought if I could just show these people how to do it, because at that point I had taken off some work and I was going back into the workplace because I wasn't able to get things up and running to be self-sufficient financially, so I had to go back in. And when I did that, I recognized, like, because I'd done so much self-reflection in my hermit mode, and I'd also experienced a lot of situations with those who pretended to support me, my silent supporters. When I recognized who they were, I could start seeing this in other people. But I also, so while I recognized like I needed to create space between these individuals, I hadn't been able to actually close the door on them. So it happens in stages, right? I was just hopeful that, let's give these people some space. Let's give them an example. At this time, I was trying to create content, and while it was for those who were in my position, it was also the intention was to help those who, the bullies that had come against me, because I could still have some sort of empathy for them. And now I'm to the point where I'm just recognizing these are two totally different groups. And that's not necessarily to say the empath is different from the narcissist. It's necessarily to say those who are wounded and need to heal don't necessarily choose that path, because I recognize that these people, even trying to show them, trying to lead by example, try to be a leader in that environment, all I did was make myself a bigger target, because you know what, I was throwing myself on the knife, so to speak. These people weren't even interested. They love their ways, they love their toxicity, something about it they love. They find comfort in the mundane, in the same old. Even though it's chaos and confusion, there's something very self-soothing about knowing that they know what this situation, they know what to expect. And these people have fear of the unknown, where they're just like, I do too. Don't get me wrong, I do too. I don't know what this is gonna look like. I've never been here, and I'm having trouble finding people that I can clearly recognize that they have been where I've been, and they've walk the path I've walked. So like, everybody's going to have different experiences and different support systems, and so I just want the people that I look to as mentors, I'm just recognizing like they still have friend groups, and they still have, it seems, I don't know, I'm just seeing that I don't know, for me, I personally had to go all that path, because I had to clear out the old, because I didn't want any chance of me going back to it. And I could still see how like it just wasn't that deep for me anymore with those people. So it's like, why am I connecting? I had to be way more intentional with who I'm connecting with and why. And so I just haven't seen people who have made those harsh decisions where they're willing to really cut people off and look at it and be like, you know what, well, I didn't have a betrayal or backstabbing from these people. They also weren't supporting me and showing up the way I would for them or want. And so like, it doesn't have to be that deep, but like, I'm gonna close this chapter off completely and say, take care and see you later, right? And so yeah, it's been definitely challenging to find people like that. And in the midst of all this, like I said, I fluctuate between narcissist and empath, because some of the traits are so similar. So like, there's the ego, where it's like that gym bod goer, that gym rat, whatever, that's what they call it, a gym rat. I don't think it's a gym rat, but I don't actually understand that term, so I'm actually gonna renege that. People that the gym bod, it's just a gym bod, like where they're like obsessed, where they're in, that is because I used to be there too, not at the gym, but I would just work out from home, and I was really in shape, and I was overly focused on my exterior, right? And so and those people want to be seen. Their ego says, I need to be seen to feel important. And then there's the empath, where for me, I felt like I've been seen. I've been seen too much, because what happened was any little thing I did, I was around controlling individuals, where it's just like, it's kind of like I've said this in a different video, where they see a baby starting to walk and they put you down quickly because I don't know, that's like, oh my God, what are you gonna do? You're gonna start walking, what are you gonna do when you start walking? Like, is it gonna make more work for me? Like that kind of mentality. And so it felt like I was around a lot of people growing up all throughout my life, even just up till recently, honestly. Like, you still experience this. You think like, just because you put boundaries up and you disconnect from these people, like they're out there. They're always gonna be out there. And I had to realize, like, not to think that, I don't ever think that, I guess I wasn't thinking. Yeah, see, so your emotions are really gonna have you out of your head, and sometimes in your head for other things. And so like, when you need that reality check, that's where emotions step in, unfortunately. And you're needing that logic to say like, of course it makes sense. There's always going to be people like that. So the idea is to learn how to deal with them, instead of not necessarily like, I mean, yeah, you want to recognize and avoid them if possible, but you're also going to at points have to come face to face. And that's a bully. We can't, like, I know some people say don't face the narc. Don't I'm finding trauma brain makes it hard to find my words at times too. But you don't want to call out the narc. To me, I do want to call it the narc, because I'm so sick of sitting here, and I think that's part of the problem, is nobody ever calls out the narc. They're yes-manning them, they're enabling them, and so it almost doubles down on their delusion that what they're doing is okay, and that they're in the right, and that blaming everybody else for the problems is working. And so that's why I don't rock with that idea. While yes, they're dangerous, but what do you think enabling a bully is? That's dangerous too. Like, we got to pick, like, you know, if we continue to enable the bully, they're always going to be a bully. But if we start standing up to the bully, then that's going to start breaking that system down. And while it's going to be dangerous and uncomfortable for a while, it doesn't have to last forever like it would if we're just continuing to enable it, you know? So, like, people got to start sticking up and, like, sticking together. And that is challenging too, because, like, there are times when I see somebody in their emotions, and like, I don't know their side of the story, and there are times where it's like, you know what, I just can't get that deep into it. And so with my expectation is, if I ever need backing from that person, I'm not going to get it because I wasn't there for them. And that's just normal. That's just, you know, if you didn't have my back, then I'm not going to have yours. That's kind of how it rolls, right? No harm, no foul, just reality. And so I think that's why it's important to be intentional with the people that you surround yourselves with as well, and who you rock for, because it's kind of like, well, like, do you know who you're standing for? Do you know who you're standing up for? You know, like, I remember seeing a post on Facebook, and this lady was being accused of some things, and she was in a she takes care of fostering cats or rescue cats and things like that. And while I could read everything that she's saying and I could relate to it, I still didn't know if what she had done was what she was accused of, because when I looked at the other person's side of the story, I'm like, that could be possible. Now, yeah, like, you know what, I want to share her post, I want to have her back, but at the same time, I'm recognizing some things about her where I can't rock with that, because, like, I don't know, there's just some things I'm not going to get into here, but it's just, I don't know, it's like when you're fostering animals and you have, like, an Amazon list with so many expensive items, and you're asking people for money. To me, I would personally be trying to make the most out of the situations, and I would try to make things out of cheaper items, like make it from, you know, instead of ordering them off Amazon, and when they're super expensive and honestly not always high quality. Amazon for me is like the new Wayfair, and if you know, you know. It's like Wayfair items are high priced. While they are high style, they are normally damaged, and so I find Amazon to be doing the same thing. It's like cheap quality. Like, the style is there, but the quality isn't there for a number of items. So it's made me pause. I mean, it has its purposes, right? So yeah, I just had to recognize where, whenever I came across the narcissist, and they were what do you call that? Like, displaying certain signs and behaviors, those are things where I had to learn to mirror for myself. So, like, it's so interesting, because, like, I would be so in my head, and I would feel like a potato, and I am not doing my workout, and I just feel bloated, and, like, to me, that's sweats in a sweatshirt kind of day. And for the narcissist, they're, like, wearing their best. So, like, they have, like, this sort of confidence, which is so strange, because they're so insecure. Like, it's conflicting energy, and I don't understand that part, right? I mean, I guess I have it the other way, but, well, no, because they still feel the need to, like, lash out. So I don't lash out, I speak up for myself, and it usually doesn't show up right at first. I give people chances, and I also give chances to, like, I'll show them who I am, and I'm gonna let them show me who they are. And then if they want to treat me badly and not recognize or have remorse and, like, come back and say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's I'm gonna let you show me who you are. I'm gonna show you who I am, and then I'm gonna show you who I really am. Because a lot of people, like, I don't come out full force because I don't feel it necessary. But let me tell you, like, just because I'm waiting quietly, what I'm doing when I'm not coming out with that full force, I'm taking that energy in, and I'm using it to process the pain, to turn it into power. And so a lot of people mistake your lack of reaction as, like, weakness, or I got a shot in. No, I'm actually just processing it. I'm progressing it, digesting it, and I'm getting good at experiencing this, because in life, as either entrepreneur, as you're growing and elevating, you're going to experience this a number of times, because the higher you get, the more of a target you are, the more visible you are. You got to expect that that's going to come from more, distances, from different places and people. And unfortunately, like, the people that hate on you are the people that want to see that it's possible for them, and they don't want to acknowledge that they could do this. And while it's going to take a long time, for sure it is, because it took me a long time, but that's why I'm trying to share on here, information that can help people recognize where they're at. And so while the narcissist and the empath are very similar, so I'll use that mirroring. So if, like I said, if I see a narcissist that I'm like, wow, I just noticed that they can't even handle cleaning up their own mess, but yet they're very confident in their in their appearance. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I need to work on that within myself, right? And then I also use it to acknowledge where I do have, like where I wasn't giving myself enough credit, where I see how they can't, like they're shutting down on a basic, like you're just requesting them to clean up their own mess and they're like shutting down and like freaking out. That's another time where I mirror back and I say, well, I've actually, you know, where I used to be reactive to the narc, not necessarily like that, but I think it could be similar. In some cases, I'm no longer being like that. So it allows you to also see where you need growth and where you have grown. And so it doesn't have to be always like a negative experience with them. They can mirror a lot back to you. And so when I used to get caught up in that twin flame journey, I was comparing like what I wasn't receiving to this person who I thought, and it wasn't just a one person. You got to be careful because you're like, well, if that's not mine, because they'll talk about false twin flames too, right? And so I'm like, well, maybe that was just a false twin, because it sounds credible. When you're hearing this, it sounds, because it's blanketed and it's dressed up with confidence, with like the way they just speak into it. It's like they've researched this, they have information, they're receiving it from somewhere, something like that must be true. And like I'm not trusting myself because I've been taught not to trust myself, unfortunately, by my family and society. So I put my faith in other people and other systems and other things. And that's the thing too, is like, you know, putting your faith in God is wonderful, but like God is there, in my opinion, as guidance. You know, just like little bookmarks, little aha moments, but not to actually like, nobody's going to get me up off of this chair and get me into my money unless I do what I need to do, right? Like God's not going to, you know, if I sit here and just watch TV, nobody's bringing anything to me, no matter how comfortable I am in my non-work mode, right? Now, when I've had to recover and rest from and aid my nervous system, I definitely have received financial aid in ways that I didn't know it was available, but it's forced me to go look and find and ask questions to where I wasn't before. So it got me into asking the hard questions, and I'm finding, you know, some answers there, you know. And I'm not saying like God isn't involved, but at the same time, like God isn't down here doing the work. And well, we can talk about protection. Yeah, I do agree with that to a certain degree, but at the same time, I don't, because it's like you have to protect yourself. You can't expect to be protected if you keep going back into a toxic workplace. It's just delusional. That is delusional. It's just a matter of if and not when, you know? It's a matter of when, not if. Because like these environments, they just got worse and worse and worse. No matter how much I forgave them, how much I sent love towards them and understanding and compassion, it's a load of crap. That's why I don't rock with the religious and some of these spiritual belief systems were like, just forgive and just forgive. And it's like, no, you forgive. You got to forgive yourself first. I found I couldn't forgive myself because every time I forgave that person, I was forgetting what they did. And so what happened was it would put me on a repeated pattern where I'd line myself up with these people and I'd be like, okay, so why are they like this? You know, and I'd wonder, oh, maybe they're just this and maybe they're just that. And I could see the wounding in them. And so I was drawn to that part because I felt bad, because I was raised to feel bad for other people and ignore my own feelings, right? So that's what I had to be aware of. And it's hard because like you see some people that are struggling, and like while you can feel bad and you can understand, I mean, something went wrong in their life. But at the other part too, I'm like, if you're doing the work, why can't they do the work? That's where I'm coming up. Like where everyone, I do personally believe everyone deserves shelter, you know, food, and you know the necessities of being a human like that. But at the same time, there's times where it feels like it's so frustrating because I'm like, I'm being put in these positions and I'm working my way out of it. And I feel like there's some people that have just given up and said, you take care of it. I no longer want to deal with my wounds. And that feels unfair to the rest of us who are doing the work internally. And like, so like we've already had to carry the load for our family, for the people up to this point. And now we still have to continue carrying the load for other people who've just given up. I can't give up. Like I'm going to lose my house if I give up. You know, there's people out there that I feel like responsible for in the way, like if I figured out some way to do it, then I got to put my information out there for other people so they can't give up. There's always something you can do, even if you have to rest. But I do, And that's the problem, is like it's just recognizing when you need to stop giving and you need to start receiving. And receiving means from yourself, and that doesn't always mean, I mean, it does include from the universe in that as well, but it's like receiving for yourself. You need to recognize where you can't just keep jumping back in and being resilient and tolerant of this abuse. You can It's like, what is that, martyr? Is that what it is? Like self-sacrificing? Like, and some people think, oh, that makes me strong. No, it doesn't. It makes you weak, because you're stuck in your pattern and you're not willing to face the unknown. Facing the unknown, that's strong. Facing a pattern and going back into it, that's easy. That's fast, easy Amazon energy. When you're going to do it the same way. Now, if you have to go back, make sure you do it differently. Don't invest as much. Get a position that is actually going to pay you your worth. We work the dollar amount. Don't just show up and like overdo it again just because you know what that looks like. When you overdo it, someone's going to overtake. It's just out of balance. You need to learn how to balance. And so that's what also happens with the narcissist. Like, the difference is, like, the narc is like a overtaker and the empath is an overgiver. So as long as you're willing to do that, you're going to keep pairing up with these narcissistic personality types. And we don't have to name them a narc. Like, not everyone is a narc, but there's a large amount of people in society right now that are highly narcissistic in their traits, because they're just so self-centered and they're just so invested in their own pain that they can't see outside of their pain bubble. And so they're bumping everybody and they just don't really care. Like I said, they're bumping people. It's like, they're bumping into people because they're not watching, because they're so obsessed with their whatever and their phones and things, and they're bumping into people spilling the coffee, and that person gets burned by the coffee, and now they don't have a coffee, and that person's, oh, like, sorry. Well, no, replace my coffee. And then when you leave me from bumping into me, look up. Do different. Do different. Do the opposite. Now, you got to be careful here, because sometimes you're not meant to do the opposite. This is like, I used to think, like, when I come across hateful individuals, I have to show love to them. Love is not going to bring that hate anywhere. If they hate themselves, they can't love you, because they don't know what love looks like, because they haven't developed it within themselves. So they can't pass it on to you. It's just bouncing off the hate. They got to figure it out. Life has got to get hard enough for them to want to change, unfortunately. Because, like, there's tons of examples out here. These people aren't hating because there's a lack of love in life. They just don't want to choose love. It's because they've taken it from their childhood and they've chosen to carry it further with them. And they're so invested in that idea because it feels like a security blanket. But why should I have to keep paying for that situation? Like, while we all have our own levels of growth, I get that. I do understand that. But that doesn't mean, and at the same side of things, it doesn't mean I have to target them either. It doesn't mean I'm gonna, go against them. It's not someone I would want to spend time with. When somebody's bouncing around and knocking people over, and because they're too absorbed with their own, or obsessed with their own pain, and not willing to acknowledge, like, there's other people around here, maybe I need to start cleaning up my shit, because everyone else is walking in it. This is like thinking you can just leave your dog shit on the ground and people are going to step in it, and you don't think twice. You're like, well, I'm not going to step in it because I just saw where my dog shit, so I'm good. But, like, you're not thinking outside, where even on a grassy field, you're like, oh, well, nobody will step in that. But, like, yeah, we're going to step in it. It's still dog poo. It's still on the ground, and now it's camouflaged by grass instead of, like, literally on the sidewalk. So I just learning to recognize, because there are things, when I was an empath, I was in my emotions too much, to where I thought I could walk my dog off leash, and I didn't think that there were people who were scared of dogs. I didn't think that there were dogs that were scared of dogs. I just thought, my dog is friendly. They should be able to run around off leash. And I did this when I was quite young, like when I lived back in London. I would say in my 30s, mid-30s, I'm gonna say. And it was 10 years ago. So at that time, I stopped doing it, right? And so I'm still experiencing people that just don't think outside. And it's really interesting, because, like, I used to think, wow, like, I did it because I was a single mom, life was hard, and I was just like, I just needed easy in that moment, right? And I had a dog that needed exercise, and as long as I could keep that ball throwing, he would focus on that ball, right? And there's people here that I don't know, it's just, you think they seem to have more resources, more material gain, and more support, and they're not doing anything. They're letting their dog go, I don't know. So it's, and I'm not talking about the ones that, like, I mean, I think there can be a gray zone here, because, like, it's hard, because I do have neighbors that their dogs are, like, well behaved and friendly, but when they would enter into my yard, now they're setting off my dogs, right? And so they were in the middle of training. That hasn't happened in a while. The dog has run across the road. That can be an issue, So it's like they have good intention and they put the work in, and like I don't know what their dogs are like now, but I mean I assume just getting better, right? Because they are good at training their dogs, right? It was just there's some experiences where I've had where it's just anyway. So that's a problem. It's like we get into these gray zones and we kind of make excuses for one, but not for some. And so like if one person sees, well, their dogs are off leash, so I can do that too, but their dogs don't have recall and their dogs can be aggressive, that's the problem. That's the problem here, right? So it's I don't know what the solution is, because like I said, it's when you have rules for everyone, I think that gets more consistency and fairness. Even though one dog doesn't require it, it's still saying like, you know, and I know like if you have your dog on your front lawn, I guess as long as it's maintained there, then that's allowed, I guess. It's when the dogs come off the property and affect other dogs. Because I've had that situation too, where the dogs are coming off the property. I'm like, my dog's on a leash, so I don't know if my dogs are going to bite yours or not. So if my dog bites yours, you're going to be the one responsible because your dog is off your property, you know, like that kind of thing. And they just totally couldn't see my side of like, you know what I mean? Like you don't know my dog, and it makes me think of them as owners. Like what about your dog? What about your dog? Like your dog is running out into the road. Are you not concerned? Your dog is running over to other dogs, and you don't know what's going to happen. Like I don't know. There's a lot going on there, and so like that's the thing is too. It's like even with narcissists and empaths, like when I'm trying to work through these things, it's not always. It didn't feel cut and dry, if that's the right term, because I'd always be like, well, what if this and what if that, and maybe they're this and maybe that, and I got to the point now I'm just like, I've experienced so many miserable people where I just don't care anymore, and that's where I've lost the empathy in that way for not entirety. It's just how when it comes out. You know, I wait now. I'm more logical, and where I'm like, you know what? I don't know this person. And I think instead of like giving my love to everybody and being a loving person to everybody, I stop and think, this person has the potential to be hurtful, okay? And I also stop to think, what in this moment am I capable of giving without receiving? You know, if I don't get this back, am I okay with that? It also gets me into why I give. And so, you know, there are times I'm like, well, why am I giving right now? Why do I feel the need to give to a homeless man when I have no money right now? You know what I mean? And I'm because I feel bad. Okay, that's not a reason to give. To give because you feel bad is an emotional place, not a logical place. So if you're giving out your money and you can't afford groceries, now you're without. Now your energy is depleted. You know what I mean? Like we all need to be pressed to go after what we need. And some people are in a position where they're past the point. I understand that. There's some people who are past the point and are like health and mentally and emotionally places where it's like it's too much. So I understand that. And the problem is you have other people who are kind of dressing up like that and playing that role, but haven't experienced it. You know, they're not at the same places. It makes it really difficult. So like I said, I just learned how to work what I can give in that moment, and if I can't afford to lose it, then I'm not going to give it. And I understand that every person has the potential to be manipulative and whatever. So I just kind of put these windows up, these veils, I guess you can call them, these like screens before I allow the emotion to come. Like I sift the emotion through that. So by the time it gets to the level where I'm ready to, you know, engage or give or you know, whatever, or participate, I'm like, have I put it through these screens of logic before my emotion is allowed to feed through? And some people may think that's fucked up. I'm like, you know what? You know what's fucked up is giving over and over again and being betrayed and abused over and over and over again. That's fucked up. And thinking that, you know, like I just had to learn, it was a way of showing up. I was showing up the wrong way, you know, and it was my programming, my belief system. So that's where so I'm also looking at, so mirroring the narcissist, but also recognizing when it's time to, I would say mirroring the narcissist in some ways, but in other ways, making sure that you're protecting yourself. You know, giving what you're getting. I match their energy too, you know? So not only do I mirror, I match. You know, I'm not all excited when I meet people anymore. I used to feel like I need to be overly friendly and happy and content, you know, to prove to people that I'm friendly. And I'm like, those fuckers that I met that were like that, those people were manipulative. And so I'm no longer doing that because I no longer want to attract that. I'm just like, I'm going to show up, because the thing is, nurses are looking for that high energy supply and that interest and the doe eyes, and I'm just so drawn to everybody, and I'm just willing to give to everybody. They're looking for that doe-eyed, kind of naive, gullible, but very giving attitude, right? They're looking for that. They're craving that. Because they know that that person has an innocence about them where they haven't reached, they don't push their information and their opinions through those veils, those screens yet, right? They're just right out there running by their emotional state, and that's highs and lows, and so they're just bam, giving. And so you become less interesting to these people when you show up like kind of like maybe not that low, but you know, neutral. I call it neutral. I'm not gonna show, I'm not gonna be a big open grin, because that's kind of like, I've seen people do that, like celebrities do that. There's one celebrity who I consider to be predator, and the other one was prey, and the prey had this big open grin, almost to show like, I'm not a threat. And then the celebrity I saw that was a predator was looking down at the other one, and she just had this sort of like shit-eating grin, kind of like she was like sizing her up. Yeah, and I notice a lot of people who are like even Britney Spears, I saw, she always leads with this very open mouth grin, and she's it just feels like it's a way of, I don't know, it's like a way of saying like, I'm no threat. And I feel like that's exactly what these people are. Just as you're drawn to them, they're drawn to you, right? So you got to be aware of that too. Same things, like just as you're looking for that caramel friendliness, they're looking for that that soft, gullible, pliable, susceptible, and like very vulnerable sort of personality. That's why these people, you're gonna find them in all these different environments. They're not just in Hollywood and celebrities, you know, they're not just in politics. These people are in your these are your neighbors. These people are in your social services. These people are in your schools. Like anywhere there's a different power dynamic that they need to feel like they can push someone down to make them feel big, you're gonna find them there. It's kind of gross, but I'm gonna end this video there. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, or if I need to clarify some things, because like I said, I'm working on my formatting. It's a little bit hard with my trauma brain, and just the place I am in life, to really focus and stay focused. So I'm working on that. I've got a clipboard and pen, so it's helping a little bit, but not really. So hopefully it gets better. Yeah, be sure to like and subscribe to videos you find helpful. I do other videos. I do card pulls here and there. I don't like to do it like a full-time channel, because it's just not what I do all the time, and I have other things and other interests. I also am offering one-on-one coaching. You can find that in my description box. And I'm doing some emotional check-ins, which have like a book of disease and illnesses that we get some information around on where those are coming from, what are like exacerbating them. And so yeah, that's another kind of video I'm doing. So yeah, definitely feedback would be helpful, just to let me know what you guys are enjoying and what you're not enjoying. And you know, by liking and commenting and even sharing if that feels safe for you. And yeah, I have some other ideas coming up as well, but yeah, the more you like and comment, it gives me a better idea of what to prioritize and what you find helpful for you, and the format that you're putting it. Because I also have, I do writing in Facebook, and I post in Facebook, and I'm also going to be putting some other different like oracle card readings. I don't really focus on, I'm not a tarot reader, because I just haven't learned how to read tarot. I just use the cards how I interpret them, so I don't consider myself a tarot reader, an oracle card reader, I guess. And so yeah, I also do tutorials on, like, you know, my belief systems and where they came from and how I developed them, so other people can help, you know, if they find that helpful, like that perspective, because I find there's a lot of things out there that can get us stuck and keep us up in the clouds when we need to be grounded and into action. So if you're interested in any of those, like, subscribe, check out my description box, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and take care.